Welcome, welcome, welcome. You probably noticed a few people up here on stage. Just a little sort of housekeeping for how we're going to do this here. We have a wonderful panel, distinguished panel up here that we're going to be talking all about packaging and distributing those packages and the workflows with packages. We also have time for Q&A as well. So there are two microphones located in the aisles here. So when we get to the Q&A portion, please make your way to those microphones and ask the questions. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to the man, the myth, the legend, Charles Edge, who will be moderating this panel here today. Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, everyone. As he said, I'm Charles Edge. He did use the word distinguished, and while that may be true for everyone else on the panel, it's certainly not for me. But I will let you guys introduce yourselves rather than destroy your names. So I'll start with Paul.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Paul Bowden. I'm with the Office for Mac Engineering team at Microsoft. And I own deployment, updates, installers, and manageability.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Toms, also known as Mac Mule, the second Brit on the panel, and the only one who's not a vendor. So I'm going to be fine for you guys, hopefully. We'll see how it goes.
I'm Tony Schwant, the Professional Services Manager at Code42, responsible for overseeing the deployments for our largest customers.
Hi, my name is Doug Roten, and I am a technical product owner at Jamf. In addition to the Mac apps, such as Imaging, Composer, I also manage the team that has the Jamf Pro installers.
And so Paul was kind enough to send me a few questions before we got here, like weeks ago. I was surprised by how well prepared you were. So I'm just going to ask a couple of those before we open it up to the audience, if that's all right. So the first question, if I deploy Office 2016 for Mac, how come the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. suite installer is 1.6 gigs in size, but if I deploy the standalone apps, they're 4 gigs?
Sure. So you may have noticed this yourself. If you want the ultimate flexibility in which apps you deploy, you may take the standalone installers or updaters, so the Word installer, Excel installer. But yeah, when you put them all together, they're 4 gigs in size. Now, the Office apps are designed in a way that they could be delivered through App Store mechanisms or content delivery networks. And so the bundles themselves are all independent and self-reliant. But there are some fonts, frameworks, proofing tools which are common throughout all of the apps. So in 2011, we used to put the fonts in like the system fonts folder, but of course in 2016, all the fonts are embedded inside the app bundle. So to save bytes over the wire for download, what we do is we put a single copy of fonts, frameworks, and proofing tools into our suite installer, and then at runtime, when you're actually running the install, we inject those 3 shared components into the app bundles. So instead of having downloading 5 copies of those 3 shared components, we only download 1 copy. So it's a bytes over the wire saving.
So does that mean that once they're put on the disk that they're smaller, or does that mean they're still larger once they're put on disk?
It's a really interesting question because the app bundles themselves have to be independent, so they take up the same amount of space as to whether you're doing standalone install or whether you're doing suite install. Although it's something I learned today, I was speaking to Mr. Robert Hammond and Rich Troutman, demigods inside the community here, and Robert was telling me how on 10.13 the suite installer seemed to go so much faster than on 10.12. And I was like scratching my head for a while, and then I immediately thought of Rich's presentation with APFS and copying and cloning and his demo about how quickly files copy. And I'm actually eager to get back to my lab now and actually see whether we're taking advantage of the inherent copy clone capabilities and only having like 1 copy of those on disk.
So what you're really saying is that by being here, we are keeping Office developments from happening faster.
Absolutely. And it's kind of incredible. And you know, whether I'm out on the Slack channels or whether I'm interacting with vendors and you here, it's like I learn so much through this process. So.
I do have to say I was super impressed the first time I saw you on Slack, like raising your hand like, that's my fault. So thank you for that. And not only that, but then taking those reactions that the community had to various things that happened and taking action. So that's impressive, to say the least. Now the next question is kind of near and dear to my heart. So I have this theory that all apps at some point relatively soon will be self-contained and there will be no more packages, and we will just be dropping, similar to how we do in iOS, something that we explode onto disk and allow to run. So your question is, each of the Office apps are sandboxed. So why does Microsoft still insist on shipping Office apps in packages? Why not just drag and drop those into application files like everyone else? By the way, by like everyone else, you mean not Adobe.
Is Carl here?
No, Carl is not here. He's actually on site in an Adobe customer right now, or he would be.
Yeah,
and that's why I got to pick on him without getting punched.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting question. When we started the Office Mac 2016 development cycle, I guess back in 2012, we started that we wanted to comply with Apple's latest standards, whether it's kind of security or App Store guidelines, because at the time we just didn't know how we wanted to distribute the apps, so we wanted to kind of keep all options open. And so, we did sandbox them. The apps themselves conform to, the most stringent of Apple's application guidelines. So the kind of the core app functionality that is like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, they could be deployed through the App Store, if we wish, and hopefully sometime in the future. But, we have various privileged helper tools. We have our licensing component. We also have MAU, which is Microsoft Auto Update. And those things need extra special help and care and attention from the OS. So specifically for MAU, one of our capabilities is that we can update the Office apps without requiring users to enter the admin creds, which is typically what you would normally do if you were in like a drag and drop package situation. So the things like that, they really have to be wrapped with inside a PKG because we need to be able to deploy to, application support, library folders.
And by need, you mean want?
Absolutely.
Got it. So I'm going to actually extend this question to two. So we'll start with Microsoft and then move on to Code 42. Tell me the story of the volume license serializer in your case and the volume license story, I guess, in the code case, and how that came to be.
Sure. So this actually goes back to the very first night. I think it was November the 12th, 2 years ago, when I joined Slack. And it was after Talking Moose with Bill Smith. I'm sure many of you know him well. Kind of coerced me into joining the Slack channels. I was just gobsmacked and blown away because I had no idea the amount of frustration that people were having with the Office installers at that time. And there were a few blog posts around about how it really just doesn't work for IT admins. That was my big first learning. That was my big aha moment of, holy crap, I got it all wrong through the design. And so that's why I kind of put my hand up and said, okay, let's make it right. The one big thing that people were struggling with is we had different packages for different license types. If you were an O365 customer, you would have one package. If you were a volume license customer, you would have like an alternate package. And the reality was that 99.9% of these packages were identical. It was just some special sauce that we baked in. So 2 hours worth of work, and we extracted that special sauce into a separate sub package, and then we standardized into one suite installer, one Office installer, regardless of what license type you had. And it's really interesting. So many of you had struggled for weeks and days, maybe months, with this issue, but for me it was just a 2-hour quick fix. And so when you're dealing with vendors, be sure to be the squeaky wheel and be very clear, because you never know, it could be something like this situation where it's so easy. The issue was just staring me in the face, and I just didn't realize you guys had such a big problem with it.
So let's move on to code. I don't know how many people in the room have deployed the code for the CrashPlan installers at scale. I have, and obviously Ben has. I'm not sure that there's anything Ben hasn't done, for better or worse. but we'll take it down there.
Sure. So actually, as of 6.5, which got released last week, we redid our installer story, mostly on Windows, but we made some changes on OS X as well. And when we started attacking this problem 6 months ago, 9 months ago, we were sitting down in a room because we heard from professional services, from our sales team, from our support team, that people just were having problems. They weren't really kind of getting what our original vision was for the installers that we kind of did without asking anybody. So we wanted to be different, we wanted to listen. And one of the first things we did is we called up Jamf. We got on the phone with their developer support folks.
It's a toll-free call. We're in the same, never mind.
Just went up a few floors.
Yeah.
And we just asked them, what are you guys seeing out in the wild? What can we do to make admins' lives better? Can we do this? Can we do that with the structure of our software and kind of how it was architected? Can we do something different here? And we kind of talked back and forth for about an hour, and out of that meeting came really the framework of what we released last week.
And what did you release last week?
Basically, the customizations and the username determination scripts all live within the console now, so they're all centralized. You don't have to create an entire package. So if you move from logging in via email address to logging in via just AD name, you don't have to recreate your entire package. All you have to do is go to the single administrative console, change the script there, and continue pushing out as you have before. One of the other nice things that we put in was that if the registration on a device fails, it will try again in 15 minutes, and it will pull down a new script. So if you mess up your script, mess up the username detection, change it in the console, 15 minutes later, everybody will check back in, download the new one, and continue to run it.
So speaking of smaller things, pushing smaller things out, Paul, what about, you don't call it app slicing, what do you call it? Binary?
Binary deltas.
You want to take us through what that is?
Yeah. There's a chuckle down there. Office is a pretty big application, right? That's one of the reasons why I guess Rich deleted Word during his APFS talk today. But luckily, he saved himself. He brought it back, so we're kind of friends again now. One of the kind of the issues that we have is, what about the size of updates? So we have 3 different update channels for Office and Mac. We have our 2 insider channels and our production channel. Production channel is the slowest update channel, but it's still monthly. So when we release a monthly update, what size can you expect? If you use Microsoft Auto Update today and you configure it to get your updates for you, then it analyzes what version of the apps you currently have installed and what the target version is, and then it will pull down Delta packages, so smaller packages, not the full updates, but smaller packages to get you up to date. And that's been in place for the last 18 months or so. So that's one saving. Those are still big, though, and I'll kind of give you an example. The German grammar checker which is installed on everybody's machine. If you have Office installed, whether you use German grammar checking or not, you still have it. The binary file is 99 megs. So if we make a single change to a style for our German grammar checker, the current Delta updates, we have to ship you another 99 meg file because the updates are file-based. In December of this year, we're going to be switching to binary Delta updates, and that allows us to just take a binary diff of the changes. So instead of shipping you 99 megs, we can ship you 232 bytes, which is the actual content which is changed at the binary level. And so that means that a Word update that may be a couple of hundred megs today, come December, goes down to about 5 megs in size. So, thanks. So the great thing about it is that these are still regular PKGs. We're using BS Patch and BS Diff, which are built-in binary diff tools in Mac OS X. So no kind of Microsoft shenanigans going on here. But it's a great way of us being able to very quickly deliver hotfixes, updates to you, save your bytes over the wire, and of course, because the packages are small, they're really zippy to update as well.
Sweet. Doug, you took notes on that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess at this point we should open it up for everybody else to ask questions. Just to throw this out there, any questions on Autopkg are totally cool and things like that, patch management, etc. So, I'll let you go ask all the questions. Or
Yeah, so we have the 2 microphone stands set up in the middle rows here. So whoever has questions, let's make our way to the middle of the rows and line up at the mics.
of course, Rich is first. What you got for us, Rich? Stump the chump time.
Well, this is one actually directed specifically at the Jamf Pro installer. One of the frustrations I have is that it's not really possible, at least on the Linux side, to make it non-interactive. I mean, I figured out a way. It basically asks you a question in the middle of the installer, and you answer yes or no, and then the rest of the installation proceeds. But one of my frustrations is that there's no way to just say, I know I'm going to say yes. Just
There is.
Oh, there is?
I'll let.
It's not documented.
There are some ways to script that out, so we could probably talk afterwards.
Okay, because right now what I'm doing is I'm actually doing yes pipe jssinstaller.run, so I'm just feeding a stream of yeses at it. I would prefer a more supported method.
You get a second one because I cheated.
Okay. But I also have general frustrations when I run into a software package where it's like, you have to answer questions, or you have a config file for the package that's outside the package. A good example I know of is Carbon Black, where you have a config.ini file, which lives outside your package. You can't. You basically get the agent installer and then this config.ini, and now you have to somehow figure out how to get them both to your target machine, then run the installer. So that's one of my particular bugaboo. How can I fix that situation?
That would be vendor by vendor, wouldn't it?
It is, yeah.
Because otherwise you're just taking a snapshot package, or however you're getting the second file that's outside the bundle.
Yeah, but that doesn't work for all situations, because sometimes it's making changes based on what you're giving it in that config file.
Yeah, I think the thing with that, for what we do, I didn't mention this earlier, but I think most of you know that I'm a technical director at a MSP called DataJar in the UK. So we've got loads of customers. We host, like Office, for example. We'll host one copy for all of our customers, and then we replicate that out, and then we do post-install options. So for a lot of these pieces of software where you're kind of having to do that post-install bit, or sometimes a pre-install bit to have that thing in place, because we're using this JamJar thing that we wrote, which is Jamf Autopkg Monkey from DataJar, we're actually
Shameless.
What? every talk I have a shameless plug. It's fine. We're doing some madness where the Jamf policy tells Monkey to install something, but the Jamf policy is caching the package. That's the differentiator. And then the post-install or the pre-install for the Monkey package is installing that cache package from Jamf.
And
Yeah.
just out
So
of
you're getting all the
curiosity-
components there in place and then running it via
Yeah.
Monkey at that point, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Monkey's instructed by Jamf to do this. So, but it's the only thing I can kind of say in that is trying to keep it separate. So you've got your config file and you deploy that before, after, maybe you script it and write it out. Keep that separate to that package just so you save yourself the labor when the new package comes out. You can just swap that one bit out. I've done any other kind of thing to say other than bugging the vendors as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and by the way, we also have John Miller, who's a product manager at Jamf, and he has recently taken on patch. So all of your patch questions can be answered by that guy.
Okay. This could be interesting.
It's not just like a free-for-all, get a microphone, take a seat, and Charles moves over one. I don't know if that's how these...
I mean, we were going to just keep doing that until I fell
Anybody
off.
else?
It's like lemmings. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I share Rich's frustrations as well with installers like that. A couple of them I deal with regularly are the Lightspeed user agent and semantic endpoint protection if folks are still using that. Sometimes if you don't get the special semantic package configured the right way, you run into that. And hopefully we can, hopefully various developers are here and we can start moving away from things like that. But my real question is directed to Paul, actually. Talk to us more about the command line auto updater. I had my appetite whetted last year by that and got all excited, and I'm hoping to hear more about it.
And now I need to start singing Adele as well. Yeah, so in a few presentations I've talked about the command line MAU facility, and this is something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I'm happy to say, I'll cut to the quick, that we're actually releasing a full beta on Halloween, which is next Tuesday. And the command itself is called msupdate. So your app terminal, or whether you're using Jamf or ARD or SSH or whatever you wish, you can instruct MAU on the machine to bring the Office applications up to date. The actual msupdate command, the syntax itself, we actually have very closely modeled close to software update, which of course you would use for bringing the OS up to date. So being able to do a msupdate-ia, for example, to get all the Office apps up to date. So the way that it works is that you can run it in like list mode, where it will just report back which updates are required. We even support a plist modifier as well, so we can spit out both, a straightforward textual-based output to standard out, or we can spit out a plist where you can then parse it and then bring that back in to any management system. And then you can, some other options, you can instruct various applications to update. So if you just want to update Outlook, for example, you can tell msupdate to just update Outlook and not the others. There are also force options in there as well, where you can give users a period of time to quit the apps if they're open before they're closed down in the nicest possible way. This is not a Kill-9.
Which is a great music video.
Which is great. And so we're kind of really proud about how we're taking MAU, which was really thought of more of a kind of a consumer update tool for Office, and actually bringing it into this century and providing IT admins with the ability to send commands to Office to tell it to auto update. And yeah, I'm really excited about some of the patchwork that John and team are doing. I think there's some rationalization that we need to do between how kind of Jamf sees the world in terms of patch policies and do you push out packages or can you run scripts, those sorts of things, so we can get some really good interactions going. So, so John and I are going to become buddies here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm really eager to get that beta and would love to know where to sign up for that and the documentation that I hope goes with it. And B, I guess that brings a quick follow-up question. So are you going to use that app slicing that you were previously discussing as your deployment means for that, or?
I'll be posting a video on Monday to the Slack channel, the Office for Mac.com website, and that will be a full-on demo of the command line MAU tools, and I'll also demo how you would integrate them into Jamf Pro as well. And then the following day, the Tuesday, will be I'll announce the location of the beta. You don't have to sign up. I'll just point you to the place on the Content Delivery Network where you can download it. In terms of the app slicing or binary deltas, MAU is the key component which enables binary deltas. So once you get a new MAU on your box, then it has all the smarts of figuring out where am I going, what is the most efficient way to get my updates. The binary delta capability will only be enabled through MAU. When we push updates to our CDN, we push about 400 packages right now. So whereas you may see just like the Word updated package, there's actually like 400 different packages with different source and target baselines, and MAU has that ability to determine which is the smallest package I can download.
Well, I'm very eager, I thank you, and I'll be checking out macadmins.software to take a look on that.
Sure. Thank you.
So the most important question about MAU, I think, is why haven't you, I've never heard it given that name. I've always heard it MAU. But if you're going to call it MAU, we should give it the correct icon of Chairman Mao. Just pointing that out.
And we're calling this MAU 4, and I've been advised not to have a MAU 5.
I'm down with that. Because it'll be on the
app.
app.
It might be DOA, right?
It'll be on the App Store by then, right? PPP. Next.
Do you guys have any thoughts on Autopkg, not the command line one, but the one that's got a graphical interface where you just type in your app and it shows up?
So to restate the question, it was, how do you feel about Autopkg?
Hey.
Because I almost never use Composer anymore. I just go to that and grab it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And me and John did a talk yesterday. I mentioned all our packages are in there. And yeah, I hardly use Composer. We got 200 packages that we just go through Autopkg. And recently I worked with some of the guys, Tim Sutton, Patrick Fergus, Mosen. He's just known as Mosen. Nobody knows who he is. He's like an F4 being, but he's awesome.
I know who he is.
Ah, you know his secrets.
I got the real name when we interviewed him for the Mac Admins podcast.
And so we worked on some CCP recipes, which is allowing us to automate the process of doing the Creative Cloud packaging as well. And the whole thing is basically getting rid of the FAF, which is obviously, as I'm known for being a big proponent of getting rid of the FAF. So the Autopkg thing is great. I think, and what I was trying to advocate yesterday in the talk was use Autopkg to populate your JSS, even if you don't use the policies, because you can download the content, you can have it co-signature verified, you can have it virus total checked before it goes into your JSS, and you can make sure that you're a good, proper, valid package on there. So it hasn't been intercepted in the middle, there hasn't been like transmission, or there's been some cur-ranger thing in the middle, you've got the proper version. And while we're here as well, I just want to, another thing I say about Autopkg, you want to start looking at that now possibly, because
Yeah, just from a Jamf perspective, the next stuff that's coming in patch and stuff that we're working on is just more extensibility into tools like Autopkg. So being able to take the packages that are there and make those available for exactly what Ben's talking about, distribution through patch policies, and be able to use that there. So how we feel about it, it's great. And there's a lot of good stuff there, and no need to necessarily have to try to compete or anything like that.
So John, what you're saying is that Jamf is taking Autopkg into account as part of our plans for patch management.
Absolutely.
And wouldn't it be great if there was a category on the marketplace for recipes? No, sorry. I get ahead of myself.
I'll play that game. I think you have to approve it. I think it was submitted.
I've been
Balls in
busy.
your court, brother.
Tico, it's wonderful to see you.
It's wonderful seeing you too, Charles. As always. You said in the beginning that we are moving towards self-contained application bundles, and I like that. And but I don't like to have to pack them up. Why can't we just upload them to the GSS, and the backend takes care of everything?
That's. So I'll make a comment, and then I'll turn it over to Doug to tell us why. But my comment there is I believe that that will be an MDM command, and we'll all be doing it that way soonish, you know, however long that takes. But Doug?
That's pretty much on the spot.
I mean, if you try to upload an app now, you got an error message that says something like that it should be possible, but it isn't, or anything like that.
Yeah, Charles had said we have intent and we're considering Autopkg as a part of our development for patch and really kind of all of the packaging and distribution. And earlier, previous JNUCs and just in different conversations, we've talked about, you know, an intent to do exactly that, a patch packager or a tool to make that easier. And while we're thinking about Autopkg and doing that in our patch specific and a lot of this stuff and making considerations there, we're not meaning to imply that we do not want to also provide a way to do the packaging, to do that in an automated way. So the nondescript error messages of like, that's not gonna work, or, you know, whatever it does say, making that actually work and making that as easy as we can, or even not have to think about it and it's just done, and I just get the package and I can deploy it and go from there is kind of the happy path we're trying to drive towards.
Okay.
And I would say that that's a common sentiment of anyone who spends, you know, 50 to 80% of their time packaging up software to be scoped.
Yeah.
Next.
On the patch management, are you going to add a command line so we can say run the Office executable through a command? So it says there's an update, so just run the command line to run the updater. I have several programs that have auto updates, but you have to run it manually. So if you guys are scoping and saying, oh, there's an update, it'd be nice to run a command line and say, run this updater.
Yeah, absolutely. So good question. First, there's the session What's New in Patch that's happening at 1:30 tomorrow, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's available in the command line today and what ways you can automate some of that. It's effectively a way to execute a patch much like you would a policy today. The kind of exact use case of can I run a specific script as a part of that, or to run the Office Updater tool or those sorts of things. Scripts are not a part of patch policies today, but that was one of the main things that we heard out of the beta feedback. I've talked to a few other folks about this, where patch policies are a very purpose-built specific thing to, I have a package and I want to deploy it, separate from policies. And I'll say that the naming of patch policies to policies implies that there's some functionality that's available in both. And scripts was one that came up right away of like, I want to be able to run a script as a part of this that we don't have in the shipping version, but is feedback that we've taken and want to do some stuff around.
Because Chrome updates all the time, and they want the newest version of Chrome, so
Yep.
we're having to run a script saying go out there and look for it, then pull it down. We don't have to actually pull a package down and put it into the patch management.
True, yeah. Chrome is a great example of that, where the frequency is so much so that the work involved to do the packaging to make that available just makes it untenable, and exact reasons why we might want to do stuff like that.
I just want to point out, when he points at me and says, do the packaging, I do not make packages for everybody.
That's a good disclaimer, generally speaking.
So this question is kind of, I don't know how many people here use Monkey, but I know that one of the things that we don't use Monkey, but one of the huge things that I feel like is currently lacking from Jamf Pro that we really need is be able to assign packages as dependencies as part of other packages. So that when I say, hey, I want to install X, and I already have 2 or 3 or however many other packages that are dependent on that thing working, that I don't have to document and then have my help desk guys know, oh, if you're deploying this to so-and-so user, you also need to include these other packages along with it. Is there any thought to include that into patch policies somewhere in Jamf Pro so that you have those relationships so that you can effectively just say, hey, I just want to add one package, and by the nature of that relationship, have all the packages that need to be installed be a part of that policy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So is there consideration? Yes. And actually, I'll go so far as to say the framework of that similar idea is in place in patch policies. This is like my whole talk tomorrow. You guys are going to love it. It shows apps that need to close. So basically, we built in the simple way, a check to say what needs to be there or what doesn't need to be there, or what affected states. So Flash, for example, there's all the browsers need to quit before that happens. And so it would be the same mechanism that we could tie into to say, if this happens, then these other things should happen as well, and to be able to create those dependencies. So definite consideration stuff that we want to add. And it's just, where might we put that? How do we configure that? Do we need to, bring that into policies as well, and kind of some of those things that make the simple idea a little bit more complex that we're trying to figure out. And if anybody has other thoughts on that, we'd love to hear that.
I mean, I thought you just daisy chained 65, 70 policies.
Yeah, that's what we're doing today, and that's, as I'm sure you know, and that's not great. Yeah.
So myself, me and my colleague James have been speaking to Team Argon, so John's team, the team behind Patch, or one of your teams, that's what I'm working at. And it's been about a year now we've been talking about it, and I've been trying to be very careful, but almost every conversation that I've been having with John is basically, so this is how Monkey does it, and this is what you need to kind of bring in. So it's been obviously as a product, as an open source thing, that's very focused on what it does in that area, so it's got all that expansion there for you. But there's definitely been, and seeing how Patch is moving on that, and a lot of the feedback, and where the team are going with that, just keep sending them some of this feedback, so keep bugging this guy. I'm doing this on Slack as well.
Yep.
But, and he doesn't, I keep saying it, Monkey does this, why don't you? So just keep doing that as well. I'm sure he's not bored of it at all. Yeah.
Rich.
I wanted to follow up on the Autopkg integration with Patch. Is it going to be exclusively for Patch? And the reason why I ask is that one of my, at my shop, one of the pushes that we're trying to do is get away from manually generating packages and more towards, for our developers, just put the binary, put a zip file, put whatever up on this web server, call it the same consistent name, and then Autopkg can just keep grabbing it. So these aren't necessarily all going to be updates that are going to be pushed via Patch. So it'd be nice if we could just say, okay, we're going to have this upload into our JSS, and we'll just use it however we want.
I thought that was called the JSS importer.
It is the JSS importer currently, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, because JSS importer does do this for us just fine. And I wanted to find out if the Patch integration with Autopkg would continue on with that general use functionality, as opposed to just saying this can only be used with patch policies.
Well, so we've had a lot of discussion about this, and a lot of the patch integration is going to be, Jamf are going to put the foundation in, and it's for us as a community to kind of build out the rest. One of the things with patch policies, you have to have the title installed first to then make it be eligible for a patch policy. So one of the thoughts that I've been having with this is that you'd still have your JSS recipes, and it might be that you have a patch recipe, which is the parent is the JSS recipe. So you do your normal download, your package, your JSS to create the normal JSS policy, and then the next step is then the patch. So you can have the first policy that does the install of the title, and then the second one that does the updating of it. So these are kind of, again, it's completely up for discussion on how this is implemented, just the thoughts of what we're discussing, that potentially there'll be .patch recipes that have a parent of the JSS, so you'd still have that as a normal recipe option. All that you're doing now, that full installer, and then these would be the incremental updates that'd be on there as well.
And okay. I would actually add to that. So some people on our team have have actually already built some scripts that are basically auto-package post-flight, and they will update the metadata so that our patch policy framework in the future can kind of key off that. And we're just waiting for that before we release those.
Yeah, the quick, I think I've got 2 seconds now, blurb about what the integration with Autopkg is, kind of what's there. Essentially, everything is there for integrating with Autopkg because of JSS import and that stuff where a package becomes available. Can I make that available on my distribution points to then get deployed down to managed clients? The reason that we've been talking about it in conjunction with patch is that right now, as you guys are aware, the patch titles that you can subscribe to are limited to the 40 that Jamf has made available, 42. 6 of those were just added a couple weeks ago, and those are the Jamf titles, so self-service, particularly for deploying that. So the work that we're doing that makes the integration specific to patch with Autopkg more powerful is the ability to add your own patch external source. So you can have Jamf Pro monitor your own server and then have any definition. So any title that is an internal application or a title that we may not have in the feed, there's a bunch of them that you care about, you can have Jamf Pro start using the exact same framework to monitor, provide updates, and then ultimately do the patch deploy. So that's the work that we're doing now, and really hoping that we can provide that extensibility so you can get to there. So that's a really long way to say it's not just for patch, Rich.
Okay. Well, as a follow-up, if you don't mind, would Jamf be comfortable with taking over the maintenance for JSS Importer?
I had that conversation with Greg Nagel this morning.
Okay.
I'm not saying that we are, but I did have that conversation today.
Okay.
So we have 3.5 minutes, so I'm going to kick to the next one.
Yeah, short question for Paul. What about the upcoming MAU 4? Will it be able to auto-update itself?
Yeah, so the question is, will MAU be able to auto-update itself? Yes is the answer, and in fact, MAU can auto-update itself today as well without requiring admin permissions. The way that we've kind of scoped that ability is when you bring up MAU, there's like a how to check option, there's like 3 radio buttons, manual, and then there's like automatic for notifications and automatic download. Automatic download basically says to the MAU daemon, automatically detect, download, and apply updates. And if you're in that third mode, even when there's an update to MAU, we will go and detect and download and auto-update MAU. And we use some launch-D stuff with inside the pre-install and post-install scripts to make sure that we are correctly unloading ourselves, because essentially you're kind of getting this chicken and egg because we're updating the updater. So we have to be very careful about how we do that, and we don't want to hose ourselves. Yeah.
Mr. Hammond.
All right, 2 quick things. John's heard this one, the first one, since we're talking about things that Monkey does that Jamf doesn't do very well, and that is, some of this you're getting there with patch, but the whole ability to have Jamf be aware of applications that are running. I'm trying to update Firefox and it's running. That's something we can do via scripting today. But that's something that everybody has to deal with. So that's something that should be built into the product, and it should be a fairly automated part of the definitions and patch. And I know you can do it with self-service and patch, but the self-service update model doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for labs and things like that. So again, that's my vote for that. That's number 1. Number 2 thing, please find a way to support installer choice changes, XML, in the JSS. How many times? It's the 2 use cases I hear about all the time. Number 1, AnyConnect. Not everybody needs all the components that get installed in AnyConnect, so we see the constant posts on Jamf Nation about how do I just install this without repackaging. Repackaging is bad. The other one is Office. A lot of times people don't want to install Outlook, for example. They may just want to have Word and Excel, or Word and Excel and PowerPoint. No installer choice changes. People end up repackaging, causing themselves other problems by using Composer to do it, and on and on. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Thanks.
So where was the question there? Thank you for that. So with that, I would like to thank our guests, and I would also like to recommend that you check out John's session tomorrow.
Yeah, 1:30.
So thanks, everyone.